City IJB. I think this is the first meeting for a number of people. Shona Oman-Smith, welcome. You're our new lead commissioner. And Paul Mitchell, our Chief Finance Officer, and also I think Fraser Bell is here, Chief Operating Officer as well. Can I welcome each of you? Hi there. And yeah, we look forward to your contributions today and going forward for the committee. Warm welcome to you. Can I ask Emma, just for the record, for apologies and confirmation of the quorum?
Thank you, Chair. Just to remind members as well that the public section of the meeting is being recorded and it will be published online for public access after the meeting. So could all attendees please mute their microphone when they are not speaking. We have apologies today from June Brown, Claire Wilson and Amy Reichert. And just confirming that we require 3 out of the 4 voting members to be quorate, and we have that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Emma. Can we move to item 1.1? So we've got the declarations of interest and transparency statements. And just before I ask formally for any declarations, could you just explain for the committee the inclusion there of transparency statements?
I see we have John Forsyth on the call. If I could maybe just defer to John for that, please.
Sure, please.
Sorry,
come in.
you're on the spot.
You're on mute, John.
Sorry, it's not showing this mute. And then you hear me?
I think your sticky button is stuck there, so we'll come back to that. It's really for information, so let us know once you think you've got that bit sorted. Can I just formally ask if there are any declarations of interest today for any of the items on the agenda? Okay, I don't see any signals, so we'll note none there. And John can update us once he's got that audio part sorted out. Can I move us therefore to item 3.1? Oh, sorry, to item 2.1. There's no exempt business on the agenda. Is anybody thinking that there should be some exempt business? Okay, again, nobody's showing a hand, so we'll take it that there's no exempt business on the agenda today. If we can go to item 3.1, which is the minute of the previous meeting, the 23rd of June, it's pages 3 to 10 of our pack. I'll take that for accuracy first of all. Is there anything anybody wants to raise on pages 3 to 6? No. Pages 7 to 10. Okay, none. So we'll record that, Emma, as an accurate record. Matters arising from the minute. Can I ask if there's anything anybody wants to raise on that? I would note that we've had a note out earlier on the carers information, which was item 4, page 4 of the pack. There was one other piece which was item 7, page 5 of the pack, self-assessment. I'm not sure if Simon, I don't think he's here today. Does anybody have anything on that, or could we follow that up with Simon? Okay.
John, we can certainly follow that up with Simon out with the meeting and get an answer in the committee.
Yeah, that would be fine. Thank you, Martin. So any other matters arising from the minute? Okay, so we'll move on to item 3.2, which is the business planner, pages 11 to 16 of the pack. Who's the custodian of this now? Well, Alex was previously, so it would be helpful if there can be a conversation in the leadership team just as to who's going to take ownership of that. What we normally do is whoever's taking the lead on it just runs us briefly through it. So what we'll do today is just manage that by going to page 11 and starting just working through the document. For my check on it, it looked pretty much up to date. So does anybody want to raise anything on pages 11 and 12? Pages 13 and 14. Okay, and page 15. Okay, that's fine. But if we have a lead person for it, we do most of the tidying up actually in the pre-meeting when that's coming through. Okay, so we'll note the position with the business planner just now. If we can go to item 3.3, so that's page 17 of the pack. Martin, are you going to lead on this?
Yeah, I am, Chair. So the committee have before a report with an overview of whistleblowing policies relevant to the IGB and the partnership. The committee at its last meeting April meeting considered a quarterly report on whistleblowing and noted there were no incidents to report, but asked that a report on the various whistleblowing policies be brought to the committee. So the report outlines the three main policies relevant to the IGB and the partnership. These are the National Whistleblowing Standards, which were introduced last April, Aberdeen City Council's whistleblowing policy, and the IGB's whistleblowing policy. The report outlines the three policies in more detail, as well as how the partnership have promoted those policies across the partnership and further beyond. It's worth adding, and it's just unfortunate about the timing, that the NHS Grampian at their board meeting last week considered their annual whistleblowing report. So what I'm proposing to do is, if the committee are minded, is to circulate that report with the meeting. But it's maybe a couple of things to highlight. It provides details on the whistleblowing champion role, which is recruited by the Scottish Government and is appointed to all NHS boards in Scotland. Secondly, it outlines the offer can be made to staff in NHS Grampian to be trained as Speak Up ambassadors or Speak Up advocates. And the plan is to train 4 cohorts of 12 individuals over the next 6 months. So the annual report goes into a bit of detail on that. It also highlights, again, similar to what we've done in this report, how the NHS Grampian 3 health and social care partnerships have promoted the whistleblowing policies with the aim to develop a culture that welcomes and handles and responds to any and all concerns raised in a caring and supportive way. So I think I'll pause there and just ask if that's something that the committee would like to see, the annual whistleblowing report from NHS Grampian, and then I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Okay, let's open that up for a view on that. Anybody want to come in? I see John Cook.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I think the NHS Grampian report would be useful, just to keep an eye on things. I've got a couple of other questions. Do you want me to move on to those, or
I think we'll take it that the committee would like to see the annual report, unless anybody else has got coming in with a different view, which I don't see anybody else signalling. So yes, we'll take that as a yes, Martin. And John, yeah, press on, please.
Yeah, just the other stuff really was, clearly we are doing stuff to promote the policies. Do we have any evidence at this point about the extent to which staff who are covered by the various policies are aware of them and feel comfortable with them?
it's a good question, and I think it's something that also the chair of the IGB was asking as well, in terms of just that promotion. I mean, obviously, the in the report before the committee, it does explain that the whistleblowing policies have been publicised. The annual report from NHS Grampian does the same as well, and it's obviously offering that kind of the training available to staff through Turas Learn. So that's all staff, but also the offer about the ambassadors as well. But it's difficult, I suppose, then to kind of equate that to evidence of whether that is staff feel comfortable or not. But I think it's a really good question that I could take back to my colleague Louise Ballantyne, who is the lead person for the NHS whistleblowing, and see if there's any evidence that we can provide yourself with, Councillor Cook, and the committee on that.
Yeah, I was just thinking in terms of not wanting to generate unnecessary extra work, but I'm thinking in terms of if we're doing regular staff surveys, both within the council and within NHSG, you could add a question or two around that, just to see what people are feeling, what people are saying, and then, you know, given that we are publicising the policies, get some data at the next opportunity, and it might say 70% of people are aware, and then in a year's time you could say 80% of people are aware, so you see that you're making progress. So it's just kind of that sort of thing, really, I was thinking.
Yeah, happy to take that away.
Okay, thank you for that, John. Don't see anybody else signalling to come in. Certainly this has been looked at with my NHS hat on in quite a lot of detail, and it is a work in progress, which is coming together. I think, although it might seem obvious reading it, for many staff, pausing and just working out how this differs from the HR side, you know, grievances in your work position. This is about public interest, and seeing it very much as a positive thing, rather than whistleblowing can seem quite extreme. But then there's also the informal route, trying to resolve things. So I think it is really important that it's promoted and discussed well across the teams. My question was how far it reaches, because we're talking about suppliers and providers. So there's the promotion internal to the Health and Social Care Partnership, but the people who we commission, the various providers, are they caught in this as well? And to what extent are we starting to promote understanding with them?
And certainly when the national standards came in last April, we did use our contacts in the wider partnership and wider system to kind of promote these across the care providers as well. I think there's an opportunity, given the annual report, to follow that up again, because there's a fair bit of detail in there. So I think not only will we circulate the annual report around the committee, but I think we need to promote that around the wider system as well to help with the promotion. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Martin. Okay, so I don't see any other questions on this item. At page 17.3.1, we're asked to note the position on this. Sorry, 2.1, note the details contained in the report. So we're happy to do that, and to note the further promotion, and that we'll also minute that we'll receive the annual report. Okay, thank you very much. Can we go on to the next item, 4.1, which is the ASP inspection report? I think Val Vertigans, you're here for this today?
I am. Good morning.
Yeah. Would you like to introduce your report, please?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I am here this morning on behalf of Claire Wilson, who is the kind of lead. So committee will be aware that we have recently had a joint inspection of adult support and protection across social work, health and police in Aberdeen. After a delayed start due to the pandemic, the inspection proceeded between February and until the end of April. There were two primary focuses. One was on key processes, one was on strategic leadership, and the key elements of the methodology of the inspection were that we had to provide a position statement, kind of self-evaluation document, and other supporting evidence. There was a case file audit, and there was a staff survey, which was completed in the end by 327 staff across the partnership. Roughly an even number across each of the three lead agencies. So that was a good outcome. Hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at the report itself, which is published on the Care Inspectorate website on the 21st of June. In all, it's a pretty positive report. The main findings were that the key processes for adult support and protection were found to be effective, with areas for improvement. The strategic leadership side was found to be very effective, with some major strengths. So that was very encouraging. The key strengths and areas for improvement are summarised in the covering report, which has been provided to yourselves. And really, the areas that were identified for improvement, you know, there was nothing new. We were aware of those. We'd done our own quality assurance and self-evaluation, and they were pretty much all already incorporated into the Adult Protection Committee improvement plan. However, we've obviously revisited the improvement plan in the light of the inspection. We've made it very clear in the plan which are the elements which were highlighted in the inspection, and this requires to be submitted to the inspectors. It's actually the deadline's tomorrow, the 10th of August. The Care Inspectorate changed it. It was previously the 3rd of August, so that will be sent by the deadline tomorrow. And going forward, the oversight of our progression of the plan will be via the Care Inspectorate's link inspector, who is a member of the Adult Protection Committee. And the only other thing to say really is that we are planning some multi-agency sessions for staff in October to share with them the findings and engage with them about how we're moving forward. So delighted to take any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you, Val. That was very helpful overview. Questions and comments then? Okay, can I just confirm around advocacy, the position on that? The gap there is attributable to what?
I mean, the inspectors found that in their view, not enough people were being referred to receiving advocacy support. It is something that we had recognised, and we are planning a strategic assessment basically of that whole, how that works, what it looks like, what the data is telling us, some engagement with staff to inform, and to think about how we really can do that better. It will also be assisted by the developments in the D365 system that social work will be moving on to shortly, which incorporates a direct referral to advocacy as part of that system, and the prompts will be there. I know that the Adult Protection Coordinator is organising a session in August for council officers specifically on this topic, to really aid understanding and the importance of this, and to make sure that those who are going through adult support and protection are, that it's very clear to them what it means in terms of having an offer of advocacy, and looking at what information people are given. So it is probably one of the most important of the findings, in terms of a priority for us to work on going forward. Yes,
okay, yeah, it is critical, because it might just be a few cases where it has a big impact, but the impact can be huge. So the issue is at our end, if you like, in making the referral. It's not at the other end of there being capacity for referrals.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll take John and then Martin. John.
Yeah, comment on the question. It's good that we found some areas for improvement, because that's what an audit committee is there to do, really. But looking at the key findings, key processes effective, strategic leadership very effective, it just struck me that congratulations are in order. That was it.
Yes, I think we'd want to add that into the minute. It is another good inspection report. Thank you. Martin?
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if these next steps that have been indicated will be formalised in some way, perhaps in an action plan, so that we can keep abreast of the work that's being done to address this, the list of areas for improvement.
The areas for improvement are have been incorporated into the Adult Protection Committee improvement plan, and we can certainly revert back to the committee in terms of progress against those areas in due course, if that would be helpful, maybe 6 months down the line.
Yeah, I just think that might be useful, because it's really positive that there's mention that staff, there will be briefings, staff are being made aware, and there's obviously educational input going on, but it just may be more reassuring if we got some feedback that those steps were being taken, that action was underway to deal with these highlighted issues, just for comfort.
Yeah,
that's all.
I think Val's saying yes. So what we'll do, it's a really good point, Martin. If we can ask for it to be included into the business planner, and then once that's reviewed, Val and Claire can determine which is the most appropriate committee to bring that back. But it's at some point in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
Can we agree that? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So don't see anybody else signalling to ask anything. So page 23, 2.1, we have the recommendation to note the findings and the next steps. If we can include in the minute acknowledgement of the very positive findings from the audit, and that progress on next steps will come back to a future committee in 2023. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Val. If we can move on to item 5.1, we've got the internal audit report on learning disabilities. And Jamie, you're here for this today.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and thank you, committee. With this review presented to the committee, our objective was to ensure there's adequate controls in place over income and expenditure when it came to the Learning Disability Integrated Care Service. Positively, a control framework is in place, and we didn't identify any material errors. However, issues were identified in the consistency of application, particularly with regards to the management of cash. However, this was low in value. Improvements have been agreed with the service, and that will increase assurance over the area. And that's what our recommendations were. They were improvements. We didn't find any areas devoid of control or completely absent. So I hope the committee can take assurance from the report and the time-bound actions that have been agreed by management. And I welcome any questions.
Okay, thank you. And Jamie, this has been through the council committee, is that right?
It was presented to the council at June.
Okay, thank you. Martin, can I bring you in?
Thank you. I think it's very positive that this has been such a good report. There's just that one mention of inconsistency in application of handling cash, I think it is. Is that just because of busy lives, the hurly-burly of everyday life, that when you're in that kind of environment where you're very engaged, very busy professionally, sometimes it's sometimes you want to get on with things. Is it just a very straightforward, practical, quite minor issue that we're looking at?
Through your searcher, thank you for the question. Yes, so that was my understanding from the audit we took. It was with regards to prioritisation and other work, and the fact that some services or some sectors did things slightly differently. If I can just again stress that it was for very low amounts, any kind of large sums of money or cash handling, we found no issues with regards to them. They were always actioned appropriately and timely.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Can I just ask that in terms of the audit findings and then the management response and how they're going to respond to that, in your internal audit work, Jamie, do you go back again and check the progress on the management responses, and does that come through in a collective report in due course, or what?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it does. So my team follow up routinely on the management actions, and that's presented to the Aberdeen City Audit Risk and Scrutiny Committee each session, and then once a year to the RAPC.
Okay, that was me asking my lawyer's question because I knew the answer to it, but it was for Martin's benefit, because if Martin is going to take on the chair of the committee, and it links to your previous question about follow through and seeing that through these audits. Okay. Martin, your hand's still up. Did you want to come back or not? No. Okay. So we've got at 2.1 where page 29 asked to discuss and comment on the report. I think it is quite straightforward, and we've probably picked up the main points on it. So if we can note the position with this audit. Is that committee happy with that? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
And we've got at item 5.2 now, pages 33 and 34, a letter from the Accounts Commission to the Chief Executive of the Council on best value in integration joint boards. Does anybody want to speak to this?
Chair, I can very briefly just outline the letter. It really is just for noting. So the Accounts Commission had an original proposal to develop a new approach to auditing best value in IJBs, and I think they proposed that last year, but they've subsequently given the direction to travel of the National Care Service and the work around that. They've agreed not to proceed with the audit of best value at the moment, but what they are proposing, as the letter spells out, is a broad-based programme of national and local audit works on IGBs. And the 4 bullet points there kind of outline to the committee what they're proposing to do. A further joint national performance audit with the Auditor General for Scotland on progress with health and social care integration, a national thematic performance audit work in areas such as social care, workforce planning and commissioning, a continued focus on IJB risks and performance through annual audit reports, and audit work in conjunction with the Auditor General for Scotland on Scottish Government planning and preparation for the new National Care Service. And then finally at the bottom, the chair is saying that they'll keep us informed regarding the future programme of work as it progresses. So as I say, it's really just here for information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Martin. So the letter does ask if there are any queries, that they're invited. So if we do have any, we can pass those back through Martin and back to the Accounts Commission. I don't know if we have any. But my one question is more just for us is around the social care workforce planning, which is a key part of the conundrum, if you like, of the future progress. So I think this is being done in conjunction with the NHS and the development towards a 3-year workforce plan. And is it Sandy who's the lead on that workforce side?
It is, yes. And I think the IGB are going to be receiving that report at a future meeting. So happy to take that and inform Sandy that that bullet point from the Accounts Commission, just to kind of give him that kind of opportunity to reflect on that and see if there's anything that can be added to the IGB partnership workforce plan.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, and I would imagine that that will be a key focus for them going forward. Okay. I suppose the only other view would be, as we get into whole system planning work, and like the workforce, we're going to be needing to explore whole system governance arrangements on what is being done, and the interface between the different partners, the council, the IJB, and the health board, just how it all impacts on hospitals getting clogged up, delayed discharges, and the like. So I think that might be a theme for us going forward. It'd be interesting to see if this Accounts Commission picked that up as a theme as well. Okay, so if we can note that letter and the information that's in it, and we'll hear in due course of how we're going to be involved in any audits around that. So if we can go on to item 6.1, page 35, and this is the hosted services SLAs. Alison, are you here to introduce this?
I am, Chair, thanks. But perhaps just before I go on to that, I wonder if I could give you a bit of an update on the self-assessment from Simon that we discussed earlier on. So I took the opportunity during the meeting just to contact him and ask him what was going on with that. So the self-assessment itself is not due until the end of September. So the ADP are working on that just now. They will have it completed and submitted by the end of September. And Simon is suggesting that he brings a report on that to the November committee of the IJB. Sorry, okay. of the RATC committee.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alison. While we're tidying up the bits and pieces, can I just ask Emma? I see John Forsyth had put in a note about the transparency statement. So if you can just replicate that into the minute for information as to that's what they're about, that would be very helpful. And thank you, John, for doing that. Okay, right, on to you.
Sorry, so on to the hosted services report. So this report is really just to bring to the committee an awareness of work that is ongoing in relation to hosted services in terms of achieving transparency and a degree of accountability for the funding that each of the IJBs provide to the hosted services across Grampian. So the North East Strategic Partnership Group, which consists of the chairs of IJBs and the chief officers of the Health and Social Care Partnerships, have been looking at this for some time. I think it arose initially from an audit report. So they have assessed basically all the hosted services that are throughout Grampian. They've looked at the budgets, and they're looking at taking a kind of proportionate approach to achieving that transparency and accountability. So there is a table in the report which indicates the hosted services that we have and the sort of budget level that's there. And the top three on that table, if you like, the three highest in terms of budget spend, they have been subject to a dedicated sort of presentation to the Northeast Partnership Group, and the first appendix to the report that you have in front of you today is a report on GMEDs, which was one of the first presentations and reports done. This was actually, I think it was discussed at an earlier committee, and the committee asked that we get hold of that report and circulate it for information. So that's the first appendix, and it's really just there. That report was particularly prepared for Aberdeenshire IJB, and as I say, it was prepared but in relation to GMED. So I don't necessarily have any of the answers in terms of the detail that's contained within that report, but very happy for the committee to review that. And if you have any comments on that, I can certainly feed that back. Myself and my counterparts in Moray and Shire are kind of working quite closely together on this work, so I can certainly feed back if there's anything that you would like me to do in relation to the GMED report. The second appendix is the beginnings of work that we are doing collectively on the next 3 hosted services on that table in terms of the next 3 highest budget spends. So our hosted service from that list is sexual health services. So we have agreed collectively an SLA format, and our intention is that a sort of more detailed SLA will be drafted up for each of these and will be circulated to IJBs in probably around about budget setting time, to make sure that there's a starting point, that there's an understanding across the IJBs around about what level of service to expect and what they get for their investment, if you like. So it is very much a draft. The appendix that is on the report is really just designed to give you an indication of the type of information that will be brought forward. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to populate it with much more detailed information. Our colleagues in sexual health services are really busy just now, and are short-staffed, so I haven't been able to provide more detailed information on the SLA, but we will be working on that over the next few months, and as I say, we'll hopefully get that to IJB around about the time of budget setting. So the idea is with these SLAs that we set them up and review them annually, that there would be an annual report coming back so that the IJBs can be assured, and it may be that the IJB remits this to the Risk Audit and Performance Committee. I'm not sure, but the idea is that each of the IJBs get assurance around about the return on their investment, if you like, that the hosted services are delivering what each of them require, and that they're getting value for money. So this is just really, as I say, to give the committee an early sight of what that SLA might look like, and also to welcome any comments if you feel that some of the sections are not relevant, or if there's anything missing. I'd be happy to take any comments on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Alison. So I'm not sure which order it came, John and Martin. So I'll go John first and then Martin. Was it Martin first?
I think Martin was first, to be
Okay,
fair.
go for it, Martin.
All right, thank you. Page 52 contains some performance indicators, and I wondered if that kind of information is, well, I'm wondering how relevant that is for finalising the SLA. It does seem to provide some crucial contextual information about needs and targeting resources and so forth, but I don't know, and it's quite scanty, the amount of information. I mean, there's quite limited data there. So would the intention be to have more background research in order to support the targeting of service delivery in this area when you're drawing up the SLA?
Thanks, Councillor Gregg. Yes, absolutely. Sorry, what I should have said is the information that I did manage to populate into that draft template came from a report that was produced for another purpose altogether in 2021. So it was just to try and give an idea of what might show in there. And the plan was to obviously work with our sexual health colleagues to say, is that still relevant? Is there any other information that we can add, etc., etc. So absolutely the focus, as soon as we can free up our sexual health colleagues to sit down with us and look at what we can include and what we can't. The idea would be to get quite detailed performance information to demonstrate to all of the IGBs the level of activity that is going on, and perhaps some areas that might need more focus. You know, some part of what we would ultimately want to achieve from the SLAs is some kind of discussion amongst the IGBs around about whether the level of investment is at the right level. You know, if more, you know, if some of the activity maybe is no longer valid and we need to maybe change things up. So it's to prompt we need to find the right information to be able to prompt those conversations, and as I say, to be able to give the IGBs comfort that the money that they're investing is getting good value and good return.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. I question one for you to take back to colleagues. It's on the out of hours GMed stuff. Page 41 of the pack, there's a comment saying that there was only one adverse event as a result of the reorganisation of the cells. I guess it's kind of, is one too many, or is one hardly anything to worry about? Is kind of partly what I'm thinking, but given that the reorganisation is designed to make things better, can we show, in fact, is there a net benefit because you've got one adverse event because of that, but actually have things improved? So if that question makes sense, it was not very clearly articulated, but I think you know what I'm getting at. If you could take that back to colleagues in the Shire and see, or it's Murray, isn't it, rather than the Shire? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Cook, thank you. I'll take that back to colleagues in Murray. I did also notice when I saw that report that just giving us that snapshot of adverse events doesn't really help us to see, is that an improvement on last year or whatever. So I'll feed that back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's really welcome to see this, and it gives more transparency around the whole area of the hosted services. And I know there's been some kind of view, does the IJB kind of dwell too much in asking around this? I think it's because just seeing it more transparent just helps us to be assured around it. And certainly talking personally, that there was a kind of gap there. So really welcome and this coming forward, and the SLAs. And I assume that the SLAs will be a mixture of this is what you can expect from the service, but also reporting this is what you've got from the service. So there'll be a double header on that basis. And I think, and this just came to mind as you were describing it for us, Alison, there might be worth considering, are there some key generic questions about the SLAs and around the activity that's proposed and how it contributes to the strategic intent of the plan, and whether there's any opportunities, whether there's a gap there, and whether the IJB should consider further investment, or whether it's not actually meeting the strategic shift that we want. And because it's just come to mind, there's probably a need to kind of think that through a bit. But for me, that would be extremely helpful. What often happens with data that's coming to us as non-exec directors around this is lots of information, but not so much narrative on the so what question. And I think that might be one that would be helpful around this. So it needs a bit more thought, but I think from your reaction there, you're getting the gist of what I'm
yeah, absolutely. Really good point, John. I think it's always a challenge when we bring particularly new information, and this, this type of SLA in particular coming to IJB will be new to them. So I think we do have a responsibility to help the IJB consider and ask the right questions. So that's a great challenge, John. I'll take that back to my colleagues, and together we'll see if we can come up with that generic set of questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So you've page 35 asked us to note and comment on these papers, which I think we've done. So we can note the position and look forward to the regular cycle of seeing this going forward. And can you thank all your colleagues for the work that's been done on this? Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay. Can we go to item 6.2? Starts at page 55 of the pack. And is it Michelle Grant that's here to speak to this one for us? So the strategic plan, delivery plan dashboard. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and good morning, everyone. And sorry, that is a bit of a mouthful when you said it out loud, isn't it? So this, oh, sorry, I've just realised you can't really see me very well. The paper sets out to inform the committee about how we intend to report our progress on achieving the delivery plan as set out within our new strategic plan. Looking at the first appendix, the committee may remember that a similar paper was presented in April around about our leadership team objectives. These have now been incorporated into the delivery plan, and the framework looks to clarify the entire governance structure around it, around about our strategic plan as a whole. So that's incorporating our IJB and our annual performance report that goes to it, what comes to RAPC, and also what goes to our clinical care and governance group, and more regularly what gets fed back to our senior leadership team. So the following two appendices displays our Q1 progress, and it gives a dashboard view that we've worked on with health intelligence. This gives a high-level overview of each project which is named within the delivery plan and a corresponding RAG status. The RAG status is obviously true at the point that the report's created, which was a week or so ago, so things may have changed since then. The dashboard also displays some of our high-level key data measures for each theme, and following some of the comments that we've received at pre-agenda, we've also added in an overview, which we hope gives a little bit of context and narrative around the progress that we've made within the first quarter. And going by the comments received in the last paper, it maybe answers some of the so what questions as well. So it's intended that the dashboard will become more robust in terms of the data, and also refined in terms of being able to identify some of the key measures. Some of our projects have just started or haven't yet started within our strategic plan, so it's been quite difficult to identify what some of those measures are at this point in time. However, given that we're just 6 weeks or so into our new strategic plan, we hope it's a good starting point and satisfies our Q1 reporting requirements. But that said, I'm happy to receive any comments or questions on it.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Can I open that up for comments and questions? Can you say a little bit more? We've got the baseline at Q4, and then we're going to look at how that shifts. But in terms of targets, because the baseline may not be close to the target, how's that going to be handled?
I suppose our baselines were identified obviously at Q4 last year, and depending on some of the projects, so the likes of our hospital at home project, there's a very clear target that we have in mind of having 100 beds. Some of those those targets may be identified as part of those projects rather than scoped out prior to commencement. I don't know if Alison, you have any more comment on that?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, Michelle. I was just you were doing a good job of responding to that, but yeah, we didn't deliberately set targets at the beginning of this process. I think there was a a recognition, obviously, that some of the things we'd set ourselves was very ambitious. So and you know, we had staff who had been working very hard over the last couple of years, and we're feeling a bit tired, so we didn't want to put too much pressure on staff in terms of achieving targets. Plus, you know, a lot of the activity, as Michelle quite rightly points out, you know, we hadn't really scoped out properly, and I think we can only set a realistic and achievable target when we've done some proper scoping. So you may well, there are a couple of projects, I think, that there are some numbers in there, and that's what we're aiming to achieve. But others, you might see that coming through. We're beginning to see the flash reports coming through on a weekly basis to the senior leadership team meeting, and that's beginning to put a little bit more meat on the bones around about what some of the projects are doing and what they're aiming for. So it may well be that we get some targets nailed down from some of that activity, and you will see that feeding through into the dashboard. But at the minute, we don't have targets for most of the projects.
Okay, and just on that point, I think that's fine, because I can get that. So it's going back to a strategic intent, or the demands that are out in the community, and being able to be clear-sighted on what the gaps are, because our target might only be able to start to bridge something, or we may have to make choices as to which ones we can attempt to bridge. So I think in due course the dashboard would be great, but what we don't want is, as a committee, to disappear down the rabbit holes of individual bits of data. We want to be able to stay up at that level of, so what's that telling us about our strategic intent? And I'm perfectly comfortable with there being difficulties in that, in the sense that there are gaps, but what we need to be is clear-sighted on what those are. So I'm happy if the targets will come through in due course in relation to that context. Okay, thank you. Again, I'm not sure the order here. John to go.
Thanks, John. Yeah, thanks, Michelle. On page 67 of the pack, there's a comment about issues around lack of resources for public engagement and for the localities. This might be a premature question, because I see that there's a report being prepared for the senior leadership team on it, but I wondered if you could expand on that a wee bit, and kind of, yeah, just give us a bit of an indication about what the issue is.
I think I might actually pass over to Alison on that one, because I think she has far more information on that.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I was going to jump in, but thank you for passing it. So yeah, the main issue, John, is as you remember, it's a joint approach to community planning. So we have our public health coordinators and working hand in hand with the locality inclusion managers. And you'll also be aware that within ACC there's a restructure of the housing and communities, which the locality inclusion managers are part of. So instead of having 3 locality inclusion managers working alongside our 3 public health coordinators, we only have 1. Now ACC are doing their level best to get other staff around about it, but there was a gap for a little while, and during that gap was when Omicron was at its highest, so folks were kind of a little bit nervous about coming out and getting together, etc., etc. So I think that those 2 things combined, we lost a little bit of momentum. And I think there's also something there around about the number of community ideas that came forward in relation to the locality plans is huge, is vast. So we're doing a little bit of a kind of reassessment and resetting in terms of just, again, what is achievable with the resources that we've got just now, and how can we prioritise some of the work that we're doing. So the wording maybe is accurate, but it may be it indicates the situation that was maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and we're kind of moving out of that now. The report, I've got the final report for review, so that will be going to SLT very soon. And it's mainly about, as I say, that prioritising and making the best that we can with the resources that we have. And you know, the community, we still have our community reps coming to our strategic planning group, and they're well up for this period of refreshing and renewing and trying to reinvigorate that you know, that sense of keenness that everybody had at the beginning. So I'm confident we'll get there, get back to that, John. It's just that there has been a little bit of a hiatus at the minute.
No, thanks for that. I mean, that sounds completely reasonable. So it's basically not a question of there's a, if you like, a systemic problem. It's just been a blip due to circumstances beyond our control. So nothing undue to worry about.
I don't think so.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, John. Martin, did you want to come in or not?
I had wanted to ask about the gap in the dashboard for arising from the locality plan question, and yeah, so that's a helpful answer to that. And I mean, there are other themes there which are of interest that I'll be keen to track in the future, such as the transition to adult social care for those with learning disabilities, the closure of card and place medical practice. So there's a lot of issues that we can, you know, monitor in the future through the dashboard. Yeah, thanks. That was all.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Yeah, and I think as we become more familiar with it, as it goes through the cycles, it's going to be easier for us to engage with it. Coming new, it's up. So okay, thank you for the work on producing that, and look forward to see how that develops and using it for the committee's assurance. Okay, so what we've got is at page 55, we're asked to note the framework, the overview and the dashboard, if we're content to do that as a committee today. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle. If we can go to report at 6.3, the financial response to COVID. And Paul, this is your report. Do you want to introduce it?
Will do, yeah. This is one of the Audit Scotland reports that's relevant to the IJB. What it does is it considers how the decisions were made about the COVID spending and where it should be spent, and especially during the fast-paced and high volume that was considered, and how the money flowed through the system. And there are 2 recommendations specifically for the Scottish Government and 3 for public bodies, including ourselves, to include a transparency, consider the monitoring and reporting of fraud and errors, and working together to learn lessons. So we continue to update our COVID spending through the monitoring. We also report regularly through forums to the Scottish Government and the NHS and how we're spending the money. And we've obviously, if there's any reserves, we've got the plan going forward and how we're going to spend those. So basically, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Paul. So if we can open that up for comments and questions. I've got one at page 80, the question about monitoring fraud, etc. Is that going to come through? Do we have to have a specific audit, or will that come through your own reporting, Paul?
Yeah, what happens with payment to the suppliers, it goes through the commissioning team. So the commissioning team look at the suppliers, then it's peer reviewed amongst that team, and then the CFO signs off those reports as well. So there are checks and balances before it actually get paid, but there is an audit done on the payments, which can come through this committee in time. If there's anything. Okay. Yeah. So but there are checks and balances before it actually gets paid. It goes through several pairs of hands before it actually goes out.
Okay, but we'll see something specific on that as to nil or whatever. The other one was the lessons from COVID. Are we, as an IJB, engaging on a cross-system lessons learned exercise, or is this something we are doing ourselves? Do you know,
I don't know what if it's planned anything like that in the future, but there is a national group with the other CFOs, so I can bring it up there to see what everybody else is picking up on the lessons that they've learned as well. I've got a meeting with them next Tuesday, and again I can feed back to the committee on any updates there.
Okay, it's possibly something that across the whole IJB people would be interested in the answer to that, just as to how that's going to be addressed. Martin?
There's the recommendation there on improving transparency in financial affairs, and I'm just kind of assuming that's a case of just applying higher level governance principles locally. I mean, there's no requirement there to invent new policies or procedures for improving transparency. I assume is that right? It should be fairly straightforward, in other words.
Yes, I'm hoping so. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
One other question from me is then the COVID payments that we were receiving, has that now ceased, or is there still any scheme going ahead with that?
There's nothing specific coming yet, so we're working on the assumption that there are no more specific COVID payments coming in. So basically, we've got the reserves, and that's it until we hear anything firmer.
Yeah, and are there ring-fenced reserves for that? And what I'm thinking of is where we provide it ourselves, or where we commission to providers. They're maybe still operating with certain cleaning or distance or whatever, especially for vulnerable adults or children. Whereas if there's no payments, are they expected to revert back to what it was, or what?
Yeah. This was brought up actually with the commissioning team, so that there's no specific additional funding going forward for any PPE costs and stuff like that. But what we do have is the reserve to pay for anything that's coming up. But again, because of the reserve, it's one-off. It's a finite pot. Once it runs out, it runs out. So there's a transition to try and get back to almost like a normality between now and before the reserve runs out.
Okay, and so clearly providers will need to have their eyes open as to that, because especially for vulnerable, well, thinking of learning disability services, a lot of them have provided extra for people who can't get out and about for activities, whereas, and I think some funding had been provided for that, but if that's withdrawn, then are we standing up other services in place of that?
I'm not sure how sorry, I'm not sure of the detail of that one, but I'll speak to the commission team and see what we're actually proposing to do.
Okay, it'd be interesting because it is that transition back, and for it to be clear for folks. Okay. Any other comments or questions prompted by this? Okay. Well, if we can, needing to go back to the recommendation for this, which is at, sorry, bear with me a second, on page 79. Just note the recommendations made by Audit Scotland in their report. So if we're content to do that today.
Agreed.
Thank you. So it's been quite a quick committee today, just over the hour, but thank you everybody for your contributions today. Just finally, the confirmation of assurance. We do this at each committee, so just confirming members are happy to confirm they're assured on the items that we've considered today, and we'll include that in the minute. Thank you. And the date of the next meeting, Tuesday the 1st of November, and look forward to people coming then and the reports that we'll receive. Okay, thank you very much. Best wishes for a good day today. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye.